You know, I'm something of a podcast myself. I'm something of a podcast myself. You know, I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast myself.
All right. Welcome to yet another episode of Something of a Podcast, the only podcast brave enough to say, I'm something of a podcast myself. As always, I am Mike Gamms, one of your co-hosts. For better or worse, you are stuck with me. And as always, with me is the very talented Kai VonDoom. Say hello, Kai.
Hello, Kai.
And there it is. I believe this is episode number 12, so Dirty Dozen. We've made it this far, which is pretty good. How are you feeling in week 12?
I'd like to call it 11-2 because fuck 12.
Oh, yes, there we go. 11-2 because fuck 12. Which, considering the fact I counted 2 episodes as episode 9, see, 10 was also 9. That means 10 was 10, and then 11 is 11. Or I'm confusing my own self, but this is fuck 12. Yes, exactly. Hotels, they skip floor 13 because it's unlucky. We skip number 12 because fuck 12.
Fuck 12.
All day, every day. Oh man, it's been a interesting week. We made it to May. We're already a full week in, almost halfway through already.
Yeah, this year is flying by.
It sure does. It sure has. Before we get into our our 2 main topics for this half, I just wanted to, I guess, check in on a couple things, see how get some updates. I didn't watch any Circle. Did you watch more Circle?
Yes, so the finale comes out today.
Oh,
It's
today,
probably already
Tuesday,
out.
May 8th,
When,
Wednesday. Wednesday.
Yep.
Today's Wednesday. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the AI is long gone. There's like 4 contestants left, I believe, or 5. So, like I said, they have to rank each other to see who's like the top rated, like most popular character will be the influencer who gets to vote people out. And then the bottom rated person is usually the one in danger of going home.
Eliminated.
So, yeah. So the final influencer is someone who is playing as a catfish. So, yeah. So, like I said, a few people could choose to like pick other people's photos and identities to use and play as that person. So this is a man who's like an overweight gay man named Brand, doesn't think people would be able to relate to him. So he's playing with his own personality and his friend who is like a conventionally attractive blonde white woman. He's using her photos.
I see. So he's
Yeah.
being
And so he
a
is,
blonde white woman as opposed to
yeah. Yep. And so he's currently the final influencer who gets to make the last important like elimination.
I
So
see.
yeah, we'll get to see that on today's episode. I'm
And
excited.
then it's the finale, right? Is it like a group of 4 episodes then again, or
No, I think it's just gonna be one.
the one? And then
So
you
it's like the
determine the
final,
winner.
yeah.
Do they vote on the
So
winner, or?
they'll get to meet each other face to face for the first time
Oh,
before they vote.
I see. So they do the reveal and then they vote, and whoever gets the highest score wins, or
No, just whoever they who gets like the
vote
most votes. Yeah.
between them. So it's kind of, you
Yeah.
vote for yourself too. That's probably
You
complicated.
can't vote for yourself
I see.
though.
I
So
see. That's how
yeah, you
they.
have to vote for someone else.
Interesting. Well, I look forward to that update next week to find out how the circle wound up.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a little behind on my own television shows that I watched this week. The couple main shows that I watch, I'm an episode behind. I got to catch up. I did, however, hate watch SNL for some of it. I don't have a
Of course.
ton to say about it. I'll keep it real brief, less than a minute or so here. But I'm assuming you didn't see it, Dua Lipa.
I've seen bits and pieces.
Yeah, so I don't really know tons about her. That was kind of interesting though to see her monologue. I didn't know that she was well, she's British, but she's Albanian from Kosovo, which is I didn't know that.
Yeah, me
It's
either.
cool. Yeah. And then, but the one thing I wanted to mention is that I like to talk about the cold opens and how they kind of set the tone politically for what the
Mhm.
show is. Well, this week, Saturday Night Live bravely, very bravely, decided to focus on who the real victims are in the world right now. And that, of course, is the parents of the students protesting.
Oh my God.
It was
Yeah,
like,
I
yeah, it was
missed
bad.
that one,
It was
thankfully.
like a 3-panel discussion on like a news thing or something where they were asking these parents how they felt about their students. And the bit was that 2 of them were kind of like concerned. And then the third one was Keenan, who was like, I support the protest, but my daughter won't be there, like for your kids. And he still was doing this kind of like, and they're so aggressively centrist. It's mind-boggling to me. And then they did, however, on the Weekend Update, Michael Che actually made a joke that was slightly critical of Joe Biden, and
Oh.
his I can't I have it written down here the exact, but it was basically about his desire. Like he made 2 jokes about the U.S. and our proclivity for bombing other countries. Basically, was the punchline, and he got
Mhm.
jeered by the crowd, silence
Wow.
or like boos almost. And then he makes a easy Trump joke, and they're all like, "Yes, sir." So for the record, they're both bad. Like I know we have to say that every time, but
Yeah,
yeah. And so yeah, just more of the same from the Saturday nights.
of course. But
Yeah,
I do want to say shout out to the students at my alma mater, U of R, University of Rochester. Shout out to you, those who are protesting. I support you. Keep it up and don't let them back you down.
yeah, yeah. We are very in favor of college encampments um, and very against the police violence that they have been met with, and the liberal and conservative alike pearl clutching and hand wringing about the protests. But yeah, so that's about all the well, yeah, I didn't watch a ton of TV this week. There's I did watch something else, but I think you want to take that
Yeah.
lead. So
So, yes, so Netflix is doing their Netflix is a Joke Festival. And so they have some programming right now that's been airing live, which has not worked out well for them in the past, but we'll get to that. So they've been doing a few live things. They had this talk show with John Mulaney. They've had the Roast of Tom Brady. Were you able to catch any parts of the Netflix is a Joke Festival?
I've seen some of it. I've seen bits and clips of some pieces here and there, and I watched about a third or a half of the 19-hour roast of Tom Brady. Um, yeah, you've watched some of the stuff.
Yeah, I watched the Brady roast. So I wanted to talk about that first, since I know you've seen some of it. How much of it have you seen? Just like you said, bits and pieces.
I saw like the first hour and a half, and then I saw bits and pieces of a couple of the other performers. Um, yeah, I seen enough, but yeah.
Yeah, you're not missing much. I mean, it's the typical roast, like black jokes. Nikki Glazer is a slut and all she does is suck dick, and like we all want to suck Tom Brady's dick. That's pretty much the long and short of it. There
Yeah.
was something interesting that happened though.
Um, yeah, I'll let you go ahead. Continue. Tell me what was interesting.
So there were a lot of jokes about Giselle, and you could see Tom Brady like actually about to cry, like actually showing human emotion for a couple seconds. And it was, yeah, it seemed like not fun to watch. I don't know. I'm not like a big fan of roast, but I don't know. If Tom Brady is your hero, why'd you want to see him like picked apart about like his personal life in that way? I don't think that's fun. But out of all the times this Giselle talk and talk about abandoning his pregnant girlfriend and like talking about him leaving his wife and kids, all of that stuff was making him about to cry, but he never said anything about it. But the Patriots owner was mentioned and his proclivity for massage parlors. And Tom Brady actually gets up on stage and whispers to Jeff Ross, "Don't ever say that shit again." Like in a very stern tone, like he's about to beat this
Mm,
man's ass. So I thought
uh,
that was interesting that that was the line for him, not his kids, not his wife, but the
so
owner of the Patriots.
I'm going to do something that I very rarely do here, and that's I am going to strongly disagree with you on that because that was a bit. There was no way that wasn't a joke. He said that on camera. He like everyone keeps reporting about how Tom Brady was upset about this Robert Kraft joke, but he goes up on camera and says, "Don't ever say that again," like into the microphone. I think he was joking around, but that's not
E-
that important.
eh,
But I think it was like because Robert Kraft was there laughing, you know.
Even if it was a joke, it's still something that he chose. Even if it's
That's the
a bit
moment
is
when he
still a
chose to
choice.
do the
Yeah,
performative thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's who he chose to performatively defend. Whether it's performative
yeah,
or
not
not, your
so.
point still, yeah, your point is still
Yeah,
on
it
point.
still
Right, right.
stands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So not really disagreeing with you, but you get because that's something that's been bothering me all week is people keep talking about this like it was this big like he said like it was proof that Jeff Ross said, like actually pushed the boundaries and said something like tough. But even Jeff Ross, I saw him go on like Jimmy Kimmel or one of those shows, and he said the same thing I said. No, he's joking around. But uh so I've said his name twice now or three times now already. Jeff Ross is I think so yeah, I have a lot to say about I'm gonna try to keep it all brief, but I would say um my thoughts on like what you've said so far is that um like yeah it was a typical roast in terms that there was like several racist jokes and the normal gay jokes and the AIDS jokes and the women jokes and
Mhm.
all that is like I'm not saying it's fine but it was like that part of it wasn't even my main complaint because I know that like it's a roast like this is
Yeah,
what
like I said, it's typical. It's the
the
standard for a
typical
roast.
stuff. However, I have so like this was not the typical roast to me. So I'll say that when I was younger, I used to be obsessed with the comedy roasts, right? I used to watch every
Mm,
single one. It was like the highlight of my
yeah.
year every year. There was a very brief period of time when Jeff Ross was my favorite comic. And that period was
Mm,
only right after Greg Giraldo died because Greg Giraldo was my favorite comic. I went to two of the roasts
mm.
in person. I was at the Larry the Cable Guy roast, and I was at the David
Oh, nice.
Hasselhoff roast in person.
Oh, I love the
Um,
Hasselhoff roast.
yeah, they're great. And then I've also done the roast battle at the Comedy Store a couple times with both Jeff
Uh,
Ross and Tony Hinchcliffe, who are on the roast there. So
yeah.
I'm adjacent to this roast world, and um, this to me, they're calling it the greatest roast of all time. This to me is the lowest point, the worst roast in the history of the series of these big roasts. And one of the main reasons why is because of Jeff Ross. And um
Really.
so my thing is so Jeff Ross is like the main, the roast master general and all that.
Mm,
But the thing is Jeff Ross has been accused several times of grooming underage girls, 15-year-old girls. It's been reported in Vulture over and over again. He there's a it, several people have came forward. He settled outside of court when he was in his late 30s. He's taking 15-year-old girls to the Comedy Store. I've seen him on dates with 18, 19-year-old girls. It's a known fact. Jeff Ross is a creep who grooms women, just like Dane Cook, just like Chris D'Elia. Yet, because Jeff Ross runs the roast battle, he's big in with the Comedy Store, he's all over TV, nobody ever talks about it. You'll see that entire roast. They supposedly make all these jokes, how they really hit all these people really hard. You will not see a single person on that entire roast mention that Jeff Ross has allegations of grooming underage girls. And he's the executive producer of that roast. And that is not by accident. Like, they started the roast battle at the Comedy Store several years ago without Jeff Ross. And Jeff Ross stepped in and says, you guys can't do roast battle. There can't be roast battle without me in it. Jeff Ross inserted himself into roast battle and makes it so that he is attached to everything that's roast related. Like, you can't do anything on TV and comedy without Jeff Ross being there. He's made himself synonymous with roasting. Yet if you talk about him being accused of grooming underage girls, you won't be at the roast. You will be blacklisted from the Comedy Store. And there's supposedly these roasts where you could say anything and really push the boundaries, but in fact, it's the opposite is how I saw this roast. I didn't see this roast as being like, oh my God, can you believe they were so critical of Tom Brady? Can you believe they made fun of Robert Kraft? Can you believe? Because to me, what they were doing was normalizing these people and making it so that, like, Tom Brady is more likable, and they purposely choose the things that they talk about as opposed to the things that are that are the real dirt. They kind of gloss over.
Well, yeah, it's not like I completely understand that, but it's also like not news. It's a roast. So of
Right.
course they're just gonna do like surface level stuff. They don't want to make the audience uncomfortable. The people who are there are fans of Tom Brady. But I agree, I feel like there's things that they could have like dug deeper in. Like, even no one mentioned Kevin Hart cheating on his wife or anything. They just
Kevin
talked
Hart
about
is
him being
short.
black.
Did you
So
know
it's
that
like,
Kevin Hart is short? Oh my
yeah,
God.
it's like Kevin Hart short, Gronk can't read. That was like pretty much everyone's set.
Yeah, and it's like that kind of stuff happens at the roast all the
So it's like,
time.
even if you're not going to be critical, even if you're not going to be critical, you should be more creative, I think.
Yeah,
And like,
absolutely.
I have to mention how horrendous Bert Kreischer
Horrible.
and
Horrible. Go ahead.
yeah, Bert Kreischer and why am I blanking on his name right
Tom
now? Sorry,
Segura.
Tom Segura. They were awful. Like, Julian Edelman, like, was way
Terrible.
funnier than them. They were
They bombed.
horrendous.
And that's two of the comedians that were booked. So that's another one of my
Yeah.
big issues with this roast. So so I'm gonna just like not read, but I tweeted a lot about this, so I already have said some of the thoughts. So my first thought is I tweeted the whole lineup and I said it's actually kind of funny that comics, especially roast battle and store comedians, have been paying their dues by kissing Jeff Ross's ass and ignoring his accusations of grooming teenage girls for years, and none of them were booked on the biggest roast of all time, Tom Brady. You look at this lineup of comedians: Kevin Hart, biggest comedian in the world. Nikki Glazer, huge comic. Tony Hinchcliffe, huge. Sam J is the smallest comic that was booked. I'll give that credit. They booked, but Sam J is still a big headliner. Then Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, Andrew Schultz, and Jeff Ross as your lineup of comics. There's no up and coming comics here. There's no like and so it's one of the worst lineups ever. And all these people that have been kissing Jeff Ross's ass, where are they? Where are the guys who were on Roast Battle on Comedy Central 6 years ago? Where are the guys that go to the store every single week and do this? Where are they? Huh? Right? That's one of my big questions. And of the total of the 19 people that they have listed on the lineup of comedians, athletes, and surprise guests, I counted 11 of them are people I actively dislike. 11. Okay. So Bert Kreischer, Jeff Ross, Tom Segura, Andrew Schultz, Tony Hinchcliffe, Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, and Drew Bledsoe. Okay. So 11 of them I actively dislike, and it gets worse. 7 of those I frequently complained about throughout my life. 4 of them I would say are in my main rogues gallery. And at least 2
Yeah,
I
I'm
consider
Tom Brady's
arch
biggest
nemesis.
hater.
Yes, exactly. Jeff Ross and Tom Brady
if
are
he
2
has
of
one
the...
hater, it's me.
Yes, exactly. So that I can't stand. Is like, so the
I gotta
line...
say,
Yeah, go ahead.
real quick, I need to insert. I really, really, really wish they would have wrote some better jokes for Randy Moss. Like,
it was so bad, it sucked.
they did
I
not
feel so
take the
bad.
time that they did with like Drew Bledsoe, Julian Edelman, Peyton Manning. They wrote decent jokes for them. They
Yeah.
kind of just threw Randy Moss out there.
Kim Kardashian, they wrote good jokes for too. They booed her for
Yeah.
no reason, just because people like of all the people there, like I get that people dislike Kim Kardashian, but they
There's
booed
people
her when
way
she
worse
came
than
on
her up there.
stage just because she's
Mhm.
a woman and exists in the way that she does. Like, look, I'm not the
Yeah.
biggest Kim K fan, but there's no you got Robert Kraft in the fucking room and
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
booing Kim
My
K
ass
and
would have
she
been booing Bill Belichick. Get him out
for
of here, boo.
sure. And
And also he was hard to watch. Bill Belichick, hard
yeah,
to
I didn't
watch.
get that far. So yeah, I will say a couple more complaints as a comedian. This lineup is terrible. So you book all the guys from the same podcast, who is like the biggest podcast. Like, what? Why were Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, Andrew Schultz, Tony Hinchcliffe all there? I get maybe book Tony. Like you book one of them. You have Jeff and you have Tony. Why isn't there other comics? You bring these guys here to do their podcast shtick. Those two went on stage and it was the like it wasn't even that I was
It was
offended
so
by their
bad.
bit. They were doing this thing where they were pretending to be like white supremacists or whatever for the bit, but it's
Mhm.
like that voice wasn't needed here. That joke,
No,
because
it
all of
wasn't.
the jokes are already doing that. Like,
Exactly. And I
and
don't
there
think
were
the
so
crowd
many
got it
trans
either. It
jokes
was
in
very
this thing,
awkward.
which is like way more than normal. Way
Yeah.
more with like sincerity, like not just yeah. The
Yeah.
and
Did you Dana White when
oh my,
Tony
that's what I was
Hinchcliffe
gonna
brought him
bring up.
out?
Dana
Yeah.
White. Oh my god.
It was
Oh,
very bizarre. It was
that makes
very
me so
bizarre.
mad.
He just like he got up there, he was like, "Oh, my name's Dana. Am I not trans enough for you guys?" To deafening silence. Nobody laughed. It was
Yeah.
very
Just his first
bizarre
one
and
bomb though.
awkward.
It's so the thing about the Dana White thing. So for those that don't know, Dana White is the UFC guy, right? He's like the MMA founder or
Yeah.
whatever. And Tony fucking Hinchcliffe, which I get why he was there. I don't like him. I think he's a hack. I've done shows with him before, whatever. But he does kill Tony, whatever. Like if you're gonna do a roast, he's this huge comic, whatever. Have him there. But they
Yeah.
have him this masturbatory thing where he does a kill Tony bit during the roast. Like, do the roast. You don't need to insert your
Exactly. Do the
show
roast.
kill Tony here. So he does this kill Tony show and he calls on Dana White in the crowd to do 1 minute. And
Hated
I
it.
did not make it through 60 seconds. I'd already counted 10 gay jokes in 40 seconds. It was just Tom Brady's gay, Tom Brady's gay, Tom Brady's gay, Tom Brady's gay over and over again. And like 10 years ago, I was tired of Tom Brady's gay jokes. Like, there's
Yeah.
so many other reasons to make fun of this guy. Like, just the straight up gay jokes without, like, they weren't even in past roasts. They make a gay joke where it's like, you look like you're Tom Brady sucked so much dick that so and so, right? At this roast,
Exactly. They're
the
literally just like,
punchline
"Oh,
was
he's gay."
but the punchline at this one was just he's gay. Yeah, exactly. They didn't even write gay jokes. They just like were using gay as a pejorative, which is just the laziest shit ever.
Yeah, that's why earlier I was like, my issue wasn't that they weren't critical enough, it's that they weren't creative enough.
That too. It was so.
Like
Why
we
was
have
it
known
three and
that
a half
Kevin
hours long?
we have known that Kevin Hart was short for like 30 years. So like, what are you talking about? That's not. And the Ron Burgundy thing, did you
I
see
missed it,
that?
but I heard that. Yeah, I heard about it.
It was Yeah, it was also weird. I feel like a lot of people were confused when he came out and like it wasn't funny. I feel like a lot of things did not
Usually
need
those
to be in
like
there.
planned bits are bombs. Usually when someone pre-records
Yeah,
them in, even the funniest people at the roast, they're usually bad, you know?
yeah.
Um,
It wasn't pre-recorded, like he came out
oh
live
right,
and
because it
like
was live, yeah.
yeah,
That was other part of the
but
issue is that it was so long, and I think that's because it was a live broadcast, and usually they edit these down, but this is usually an hour show. That
yeah.
roast would have been an hour long, hour and a half when it aired on Comedy Central or whatever.
I did notice that because I rewatched it now, like after it aired live, and I think they cut out
They
Kim
did.
Kardashian getting booed.
They did.
Like out of
Because
all
I
the
seen the
things
clip
they could have
online
cut,
and then I didn't see it in the thing. So they've cut some stuff,
yeah.
yeah. Um,
I think that's the only thing they cut that I could think of, which is interesting.
yeah. It is interesting. Uh, when I went to a roast once, they cut some of Greg Giraldo's jokes about Toby Keith, who is now dead. But Yeah, because they were too. They were calling them. They were too racist, but they were calling Toby Keith racist, so they would cut him to censor like that. But yeah, um, and so my thought overall though is that like the Netflix is a joke thing. I get why they're doing it from a business standpoint. It makes sense because they put on a comedy festival, and the only way to actually make money from doing this big of a comedy festival is that you also own a television network and can air all of these as specials. So basically, the festival is a bunch of recordings. It's like they're doing tapings. It's like filming a whole season of comedy for
Well,
Netflix.
the one that is interesting to me is all week they've been doing John Mulaney, like they gave him like a talk show
Well,
just
it's
for
his
this
talk show
week.
he has that
Yeah.
I thought he already had that show, and he does it. He does it live, I think.
I don't know. I've never heard of the show, and
Oh,
like
okay.
they're only on Netflix showed it for a week. So if you miss
I
one
see.
night's episode, you might be able to watch it the next day, but after that, it's not on there.
I've seen some clips
So
from that
like,
too.
yeah. So after the 10th, I think, no episodes of the show will be on Netflix.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
And
think
I
this
thought
is
that was an
this.
interesting way to go about it. I was only able to catch one episode, but
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy that aspect of just like this is live, and if you
Yeah,
miss it,
I'm
you
okay.
miss
I'm
it.
good with that. I'm cool with that, that
Mhm.
they're like putting out all this content and doing live specials and supporting comedy. Like on in paper, it's good because it's now like the biggest comedy festival. And there's a lot of people down the line on on this lineup that are really great comics, up and coming comics are getting showcases. Like I was in LA last
Yeah.
year when they did the first one, and it's great. I have tons of friends who are performing on Netflix as a joke this year, and I'm happy for
Yeah,
them.
Sahib Singh, who I just hosted for at the Carlson, is on it.
Nice.
So
Hell
happy for
yeah.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is part of what they did, or that they did this last year with Netflix as a joke, and it was there was some protest for it. But so you book all these up and coming queer POC different comics, but then your headliners are Jeff Ross and Jerry Seinfeld,
Yeah.
and last year was Dave Chappelle. So it was
Uh-huh.
last year. It was basically a way to get all of these people like, oh, are you still gonna? You can't like everyone criticize everything Dave Chappelle does, but then they're like, oh, well, here you're on the festival too. Are you still gonna talk shit about it? We gave you this little queer show over here. So,
Yeah.
but uh, but my main issue last year is my same main issue with the festival this year is that Jeff Ross is the main headliner and he's like front and center on the thing, and he's a fucking creep. He's an asshole in person. I can't stand him as a human. All of my interactions with him in person have been bad. He's not a cool guy, and he's a creep to young women, and he's a predator and a threat to anyone that's around him, and they keep centering him in all this stuff. But I digress. You were right. I had some
No,
things to say about this topic.
yeah, I figured you would. I figured you'd have some strong opinions,
Mm.
but you're not wrong. And I will say, just like as a TV nerd, I think I do like the live television aspect on Netflix. I think that's interesting. I remember because we know I like reality shows. So the first time Netflix tried to do live
The
television
Love is
was
Blind,
when
right?
they did the Love is Blind finale, and it was a fucking mess. This was like last year, I think, the year before.
Yeah,
It was very
yeah.
recently.
It was last summer.
So yeah, it's good to see that they got it together
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we waited like I think 2 hours from when the Love is Blind finale was supposed to air live. We're just staring at like a error message on the screen for 2 hours. So they've definitely come a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they did the Cat Williams special live this weekend, which I didn't see that either. I think it's
Yeah,
part of Netflix as a joke, but I'm not sure. I know it was live on Netflix.
I think it is.
Yeah, I gotta
Yeah.
check that out. But I am exhausted from that conversation. And we should probably move on. I have more and more and more I could continue to say about all of that, but we got about our 10-minute warning for our first segment here. And what I really wanted to talk about this week, which we could talk about for probably an entire episode, and I'm going to continue to talk about after this week, is also related to stand-up comedy in the comedy industry. And it is a satire movie that skewers not only nerd culture, but comedy culture in the comedy industry. and I would realistically say that after seeing it, it is in my top 5 movies of all time. Now, I think it's one of the 5 greatest movies ever made, and it's a movie that you and I both saw last week, and that is
Yep.
um, the masterpiece, The People's Joker. Applause. I'm adding a sound effect there, not really, but so since I talk too much and I have a million things to say, why don't you what were your thoughts on The People's Joker? Let's start there.
I thought we were gonna wait for after the break,
Oh,
but
wait, really? Oh, I'm confused. We're waiting. I thought we weren't taking. I thought we were doing one segment today, and then
okay, yeah, never mind.
yeah.
All
So
right,
do
yeah.
we want to try to
So
do it now, or because you have to go, right?
yeah, let's do it now.
Okay.
Okay. So when we first sat down in the theater watching the movie, it was jarring to me. Like, I guess all the different like animation styles and all that was because I am a big comic book fan, so I thought it was going to be more of a straightforward like Batman movie. So I was
Mm,
just like, "Whoa, what's going on?" But by the end of the movie, I was definitely enthralled. It was a huge swing, and I really appreciate that in filmmaking. It was a huge swing. It was a huge risk, and I'm actually surprised that it's getting aired in movie theaters.
yeah.
If somebody tried to do this with Marvel, Disney would not have it. That shit
Yeah.
would be shut down immediately.
I mean, DC has tried to shut them down over and like Warner Brothers has tried to shut them down a lot, and they have a
Yeah,
pretty airtight pack of lawyers, and they did a lot of stuff pretty intentionally to make it count as a parody, like which is protected under parody rights and stuff.
yeah,
And I guess we should say for those that don't know, The People's Joker is a movie made by trans comedian Vera Drew, and is basically a parody of the story of the Joker and Harley Quinn and Batman, but reflecting her real life as a trans woman, coming out as trans to her parents, or her journey of transitioning, as well as
mm,
her involvement in the comedy community. Because um, before directing this movie, Vera Drew's been involved in comedy production and as a comedian, as a performer, and behind the scenes for like 15, 20 years. And so there's this one of the main things in the movie is um she's trying to get on UCB, which is both a parody of Upright Citizens Brigade, but more directly Saturday Night Live. It's Lorne Michaels is in the movie. Like there's a cartoon Lorne who's like the villain of the movie. So that's like her goal is to become a famous comedian, but also like so that story told through the lens of like Batman's Rogues Gallery as a parody with this like sort of trans lens on it, and then also the most batshit animation style ever. Like just the it reminded me almost of like the Spider-Man movies that came out, Into the Spider-Verse, how they have this very fast-paced style, and so
yeah,
it's visually phenomenal. Um, you heard me. I was laughing every minute. This whole movie was like the funniest thing. Even the little there's so many little jokes that are just like in their little references. I cannot wait to see this movie again. And I spent several hours trying to find if there exists a pirated version because I'm terrible. Because I needed to see it again, and it's only playing in limited
yeah.
theaters. It's done, so I can't see it till it comes out again. So I recommend anybody listening, you need to see The People's Joker if it is playing near you. Stop everything you're doing and go see it. Um, and so, yeah, Vera Drew is absolutely brilliant. That's the writer, director, and star of this movie. I've watched several interviews with her since. She did an interview on Letterboxd and some other interviews about the behind the scenes of the movie and stuff like that. And I've looked up her like past career and stuff, and we're like 1 degree removed in like 15 different ways. So eventually I did hopefully get to meet Vera Drew and talk to her and tell her how much we love this movie. Um like yeah, so there was there's just so much about this movie that I wanted to talk about, both from the like the or I just I can't stop thinking about it. I've been obsessed with this movie. I've looked up everything I could possibly look up about it since then. I cannot wait to see it again. I'm not kidding when I say it's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, big swing is how you put it, is so accurate. It was such a creative risk to take this, and like, yeah, man, I wish that I could make this movie. Like, this is like, I seen this and it's
Yeah.
both inspiring and also makes me want to quit, because I'm like, man, I could never make, like, I it's already been done. Like, the most perfect movie I could think of has already been made.
Yeah, from a storytelling aspect, I love the idea of her being like the Joker and Harley Quinn at the same time, like both of their stories. I thought that was a really interesting choice. Um, I love the portrayal of open mics. I think it's the
Oh
most
my
accurate
God.
depiction of
Yes.
open mics I've ever seen in a movie.
Yes. And the Penguin is that like comedian who's doing an Artie Lang impression. Like,
Yeah,
they never explicitly say it, and it's not, I looked it up, no one says that online, but he's 100% doing Artie Lang as the Penguin. It's just a
yeah,
little detail, like, so funny. If you are a stand-up comedian or into comedy, you need to see this movie. If you are a queer person, a trans person, or an ally, you need to see this movie. If you like comic book movies, or you need to see this movie. If you dislike comic book movies, you need to see this movie. I cannot say it enough. And well, this will probably not be the last time we're talking about this movie. I would like to maybe interview someone from the movie on here in the future.
yeah.
I haven't asked them yet, but I did actually already immediately when I left the theater. I dropped you off, and then I had to pull over and go online and like start tweeting about how much I loved the movie. And I messaged I used to work with the cinematographer of the movie, the guy who was the director of photography, shot the whole movie. We used to work together at either Funny or Die or College Humor, filming stuff. And I messaged him, and he messaged me back right away, because I sent him the Leo meme of like the guy pointing at the screen, you know? I was like, I seen you in People's Joker. And he says it's all Vera, you know, she's a genius and all this stuff. But I would love to, hopefully sometime in the future, we could pick his brain about how they shot this movie. It would be really interesting to
Yeah,
me.
I
But
love that. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, it is, I cannot say, it's like everything that I'm interested in, like all at once, like put together and skewering so much of the stuff. Like, I've never felt more seen by a movie in my entire life. Like, despite being a you know, cisgender queer man, I've never been more seen than felt more seen. And one thing, Vera Drew said that the one criticism that she's heard of the film that she totally acknowledges and wishes that she could have done better is that it is a very white story. She
Yeah,
acknowledged that, and it was mostly based on that was who was around her at the time, and like just, but just one thing she said, if she could do anything differently, it would be, there would be more, because it's not all white cast or whatever, but it's predominantly white trans cast, but
yeah. It's the first time I've seen a brown person portray Ra's al Ghul, so that was
yeah, right.
that was cool.
As a comedian, it's so great. As like a UCB teacher, it's awesome. We're
Yeah.
gonna run out of time here. It's gonna cut us off, but just whenever it does, that's fine. But man, yeah, the People's Joker, it should win. It should be this year's Everything Everywhere All at Once, and by that I mean win all the Oscars and make a shitload of money at the box office.
Well, all right. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Something of a Podcast. You could find us at Something of a Pod on Instagram, or at Something of a Pod on YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Mike Gamms, at Mike Gamms on all the stuff. And with me, as always, was Kai VonDoom. That's Kai_VonDoom. Find her on Instagram, TikTok, and all the other things. Until next time, bye.
You know, I'm something of a podcast myself. I'm something of a podcast myself. You know, I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast myself.